Hey everyone, it's Leanne. Welcome to another video on my YouTube channel. Today I am very excited to share this Fairy Friends birthday card with you, and it's using gold emboss. So I have an A2 size card and a piece of mixed media stock, and it's cut to the same size. This is the Fairy Friends stamp set I'm going to use, and I'm going to use the background from Snow Cool, which is also from Fawn. Both of these are. And I'm going to be using these distress inks from Tim Holtz, and I'll link everything in the description below, colors and that sort of thing. I have a couple round blending tools, and then these two embossing powders. I have a glitter for the snow backdrop, and then I have the gold, which is going to be the primary thing I use to create this entire card. So let's get started. I'm going to start with the background. Now I have this laid out in the composition that I want, and I've marked a ½ inch around the edge, around the left and right and the top. I'm going to create a border once I'm done creating the background. So I just put a pencil line in, and I'm positioning the flower. So I want it to look like the fairy is flying over the top of a meadow of flowers, and I want the flowers to hang off the bottom edge so it feels like there's an abundance of them and you can't see the bottom. They could be huge and tall, you just don't know. You get the visualization that it's really big and expansive, so you don't know where it ends. So once I have all of these positioned the way I want them, nudging them into place and making sure they're spaced evenly, I'm going to put these on my acrylic block all in one piece, not doing them separately. So I'm just attaching these, and then I'm going to do a test print to make sure that everything is spaced okay, because sometimes it's hard to tell with the rubber stamps. The spacing can be off. So I'm going to use Memento Tuxedo Black ink, and this is good for COPIC coloring. But of course this is a test. So I actually like to use this ink because it wipes off the stamps really easily too. So I didn't get a great impression, but I was able to see that everything's spaced really good, and so I'm happy with how this looks. So I'm going to prepare my work surface. I have a bag of kitchen flour and a mop brush, and so I'm just putting this down because I want to emboss and I don't want the embossing powder to stick where it shouldn't. So putting this flour down first just takes out any stickiness or adhesion that might be on the surface. And I'm trying very carefully not to touch it with my hands to get the oils from my skin on it as well, because anything could stick. So I have this ready to emboss, and I'm going to use Versamark ink, and it's a clear sticky ink, and it's great for embossing. So I'm just inking up these stamps, and then I'll stamp these on the bottom. Making sure that I get a good impression because my test stamp didn't come out as well. And then this is the gold embossing powder. This is the fun part, shaking off the extra powder and seeing the image. I know what it looks like, but it's just something exciting about doing the embossing part. So I tap off all the extra, and the kitchen flour worked great. Nothing stuck that shouldn't have. So I ran this under my heat embossing tool, and you can see it there that it's all done. So I'm going to do the blended background next with the distress inks. And so I believe this is Spun Silk. Tattered Rose, actually. This is Tattered Rose. And so I am leaving the very bottom white. So I want my flowers to be over a white background, but then I'm going to slowly gradiate the background up into a darker color at the top. So starting with that Tattered Rose, and then coming in with Picked Raspberry, and then a little bit of Seedless Preserves just on the top edge corners, just to add a little bit of darkness and create more of a vignette. And I'm doing everything sort of in a curved circle kind of way. I'm not doing it straight across. I really want it to feel like it's like an oval or an ellipse or something, like a vignette. So here is the fairy. Now I haven't stamped her yet, but I did use the die to create the outline of the fairy, like the punched piece that I will stamp on. The reason I did this is because I want to emboss the fairy as well, and I didn't want to run it through my Sizzix die cutting machine after I had embossed, because I didn't want it to smush down my embossing. So this is kind of tricky because it's already die cut. Normally you would emboss first, or I mean stamp first, I guess, and then line it up. Line up the die cutting plates over top of your stamp, and you can see where the edges should be. So I'm going to tack this down with some post-it tape, and this is low adhesion. It doesn't stick very well, just enough to keep it in place so I can stamp on it. And so I have the kitchen flour run over that to take away any stickiness. So this is the Versamark ink that I'm using for embossing. So I'll get my fairy well inked up, and then very carefully finding the edges and really trying to center her on that die cut and make sure that she's perfect. And so now I'll put my powder down. And this is the exciting part. Did it work? Did it come out even? Yes, it did. It came out even. It was perfect. I didn't have to do a second one, so I was happy about that. And so she's ready for embossing. Now to emboss her, I put her on a piece of scrap cardstock and adhered her with a piece of masking tape, a painter's tape. And I thought that the heat gun might melt the paint or melt the tape, but it didn't. I was really lucky. So that was an easy way to emboss her without holding it underneath with my hand, because it would have been super, super hot. So I'm ready to do the background now, and I'm using the Snow Cool background. I love this background. I use this on a lot of cards actually. So I'm going to emboss this as well. And the stamp is just narrow compared to the width of the card, so I have to do 2 impressions. And this can be tricky because Versamark ink is clear. So I have to hold the card up to the light, and you can see a shimmer of where I've stamped. And I just have to find that edge and then create the last panel of stamp there. Now, if you noticed, or maybe not, I forgot to do the kitchen flower here. So it was a little bit messy to take off all the sparkles. And I've also done this before. But I get so excited, I get working, and then I'm like, oh shoot, I forgot to do that step. So I had a lot of glitter. I could see where it stamped, but then it was sticking where it shouldn't. So I came through with my mop brush and just brushed it all off. And I didn't really have a plan at this point. I was just going to wing it and see what would happen. And a lot of card making is like that. You have happy accidents. I guess it's kind of a Bob Ross thing. But I decided to put down some more glitter, and because the first layer had stuck to the original stamp, it already had secured itself, and then when I brushed it off, it stuck where it should have and came off where it shouldn't have. So when I put the second layer on, it had already had the kitchen flower on the brush, and so it actually came out perfect. So I embossed that, and that's done here. And so now this is a trick for doing curved text. If you want to wrap one of your sentiments and make it curved, put down your acrylic block first, line it up center with the guides so that the edges match each side with the guides on the block. I position the sentiment in the center of the block, and then working out from there, doing one side and then the other, I curve it, and then I match those bottom edges of that guide. So you can get it pretty centered and pretty even that way. So now I came in with the kitchen flower, and again with the Versamark ink. I'm going to ink this one up really good because I have to emboss over the background that's also embossed. I put my fairy down just for placement so I could know where I wanted the sentiment to go. And then I stamp this down. So I'm using the gold embossing powder here for this. And this came out really nice too, even though it had the sprinkles or the sparkles embossed on the background and it was a little bumpy. Everything came out really nice. So now I'm ready to color. This is my COPIC chart that I have for reference. And I'm going to start with my fairy. Now I'll put all of these colors down below as well. I'll link to each of the colors if you want to check them out. So when I was creating this little fairy, I wanted to give her strawberry blonde hair because this is a birthday card for my sister and she has strawberry blonde hair. So I was really playing with the colors, the COPIC colors, and trying to figure out what would be the best mix where she would still look like a redhead, but like a bright colored redhead, I guess. And so I thought these colors worked out well. And sometimes you can layer quite a few colors and get a really nice effect. It doesn't have to be a hard, fast rule of 2 colors or 3 colors. Sometimes you can be done and then just decide you want to add a little drop of something else. And my sister's favorite color is purple, so of course this fairy had to have a purple dress. And then I really love this green. These greens together are so pretty. And so that was going to be my wing color. And because these shapes are embossed, it's super easy to color these because you don't have to worry about going outside the edges with Copic marker or worrying about it bleeding, because if you are blending a lot and you lay a lot of ink down on your paper, it can bleed out and sometimes break the lines when you have a stamped image. But because this is embossed, it really stops at that embossing wall. And so you can put down a whole bunch of ink and before you see any issues. In fact, I didn't have any issues as I was coloring, no matter how much ink I put down. So it was kind of nice. So I decided to do the daisy non-conventional color. I wanted to bring in some pink and then bring in that purple of the dress, just so it wasn't a contrast color, it was more of a spot color and it was placed around. Coming in with a purple again, but this one is more of a cool purple where the dress is more of a warm purple. I want to keep these colors really light and whimsical and girly, just to keep the theme of the card really soft and full of pastels, I guess. And then I'm using the green here again just to distribute the color so that I don't have a concentration of just one color in a spot, because that can create a very strong focal point. And I want everything to kind of balance and be harmonious together. And so the green from her wings is in this flower, and the purple from her dress is somewhat represented in the flower on the right. And then the pink flower in the middle represents the background. And for these flowers, I like to imagine that they're white with a tinge of something. So that's why I use the colorless blender, just to blend out from the bottom up, and then assuming that the tint is on the base of the petals. It's such a pretty flower. I love this stamp set. I've made a lot of cards, and I have a lot of videos too. I'll link some in the cards on the right that come out. And but yeah, I've made a lot of cards with this, and every card's unique, and I always come up with something different. I think I've thought of everything, and then it's like that I could possibly, and then it's like, oh no, this is a great idea. I'm going to try this version. It's just such a fun stamp set, and people love to receive cards that have the fairies on them. There's something magical and whimsical, and especially for a girl, girls are just enjoying the cards. Like my sister, I gave this to her today, and she loved it. She was so excited. So now I'm going to do the border, and I'm going to use a white gel pen. So I'm using my ruler to go over my pencil guidelines, and I'm not making this perfect. I just need to make the white line as a guide. The intention is that it is a border around the entire thing, but because the background is white, your eye doesn't see that part. It just kind of fades into the background. So that's why I'm only doing 3 edges. And so they fade out in behind the flowers. And then because the border's white and the background's white at the bottom, you just don't see the rest of it. So that's also to help create sort of a layered effect. And this gel pen here is the Uniball Signo gel pen roller. And I really like this pen. I've been using the jelly rolls, but I really find that this one flows better and doesn't skip as much. So I'm going over my guide to make the line a little bit thicker, and I'm doing it freehand because I want it to look sort of rough and organic and natural, just to kind of match the rest of the card. It's not all very precise and geometric. I want it to be, you know, handmade and feel handmade. So that's why I'm freehanding the line and creating it a little bit thicker Now, if you aren't steady with a hand and you're a little bit nervous about doing this, you could still use a ruler. You could hold the ruler up from the paper and then just run it that way, instead of having the ruler flat and doing very straight lines. But I actually enjoy doing line work. We did a whole semester, maybe 2 semesters in college of line work, and it was painstaking, but I learned a lot. And now I enjoy it. So I'm going to attach my fairy with some foam tape. I love foam tape, and I want her to pop up a little bit because she is the main part of the image. I'm going to use my X-Acto knife to position her, and this way my hand isn't in the way. I can see visually where the center is and where I want her to go. Now, to attach the card to my base, I'm going to use my tape roller. You could also use foam tape as well, or you could use a foam sheet, a piece of craft foam, cut to the size and taped as well. So I'm going to run this along the edges, the 4 edges, and then an X down the center. When I have that all taped up, I'm going to put this down and line it up on the folded edge, so upside down on my desk, using the edges of my hands to even out the background with the card, the artwork, and then just press it down into place. Super easy. To finish the card off, I'm going to use a Wink of Stella brush pen in clear glitter. I'm going to add it to her wings and then onto the flower petals as well. There's lots of glitter on this card, and I thought, why not? Let's add the glitter on the rest. So there you have it. This is my Fairy Friends gold embossed card. I hope you guys like this. It's a little bit different, a neat, unique take on using gold embossing. And this is the envelope I created too. I used the same background blending from my card, and I did a script writing with a gold jelly roll pen. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe so you're notified the next time I post a video. Thank you so much for watching.